It's December 20th, 2024. Let's take a look at what Bitcoin's been doing. The current price is sitting around 96,390. We're at the block height of 875,642. For those of you who don't know, the block height, that's how many blocks Bitcoin has built on its blockchain since Bitcoin first started. There's a new block made every 10 minutes or so. Looks like right now they're coming in at roughly 9 minutes and 51 seconds. Let's go over to the fear and greed index. Right now we're sitting at 74, which seems high based on the kind of sentiment right now. If you're scrolling through Twitter, if you're on Reddit or wherever you look at your Bitcoin information, it feels a lot more bearish than that. But I guess the bleeding has stopped over the last 24 hours since the dip. So we'll see where it goes from here. But yeah, 74 on the fear and greed index. I'll take a look over at the mempool right now. It's still pretty cheap to be moving Bitcoin around. For a medium priority, we're only at 7 sats per VByte, which is pretty damn low. So now would be a good time to consider consolidating some transactions, some UTXOs. If you've been sending a whole crap load of Bitcoin into a wallet frequently, maybe it's low amounts of Bitcoin frequently into a cold storage or whatever, you're going to have a lot of inputs and outputs, a lot of UTXOs and that. So now could be a good time to consider consolidating those into a smaller UTXO for future benefit so that you're not paying out the ass when you go to move that Bitcoin in the future. Now we'll go take a look at the ETF flows and outflows. So yesterday, actually on the 18th, we had a very large outflow from the Bitcoin ETFs. This is according to coinmarketcap.com. Looks like we had a outflow of $671 million. That's pretty substantial, but it's been day after day of inflows. It's bound to happen every now and then. I don't think it's anything to worry about at all. Some outflows are going to happen and dips are going to happen. We're in that rate now. We're only 11% down from the all-time high. That was just like last week. Oh, not even last week. We're only 11% down from the 17th, which was last all-time high. So not really anything to worry about. So let's jump over to some of the latest news that's happening. There's a lot of chatter online about Blackrock and a video they had released recently talking about the fixed supply of Bitcoin, and a lot of people lost their minds over, in my opinion, absolutely nothing. A lot of it was speculating that BlackRock is trying to manipulate the supply, or they might have future nefarious plans with the supply. But anyone who's really thought about the supply of Bitcoin and what the fallout would be if there were to be a major attempt at changing the supply, or if there's some collusion between the miners and the major holders of Bitcoin, if they tried to mess around with the supply, it would destroy all faith in those corporations or those mining pools or the big time miners. It would just cause so much more volatility and distrust in them that it would not be in their best interest to even consider doing such a thing in the first place. But secondly, we all know that the supply of Bitcoin can't be guaranteed to be fixed. There's some nuance there. There's probabilities and possibilities. Yes, it is possible that the supply can be changed. Is it probable? Absolutely not. This is a non-issue in my opinion. We do not need to worry about this. But anyways, I'll show you the quick little snippet that Michael Saylor reposted where BlackRock stated whatever they stated that made people freak out. So here it is.
Bitcoin has a fixed
See
supply
at the bottom there,
of 20
there's
million
no
Bitcoins.
guarantee that
This
Bitcoin's
hard-coded
21 million
rule
supply
controls
cap
supply of 21 million
will not be
Bitcoins.
changed. That's all it was. They're just stating a fact. It's true. There's no guarantee that its supply cap won't be changed, but the probability of that is basically zero, in my opinion. So anyways, that was just one piece of news that I wanted to touch on. And then I'm going to go into more of a bullish news piece that I read. VanEck, which is a global investment firm that specializes in ETFs and mutual funds and all those kind of things. And they're a global company, right? They manage around $100 billion plus in assets. So they have a subsidiary company called Market Vector. And that company is basically just a platform for people to invest in indexes, ETFs, stocks and bonds, just all those general investment apparatuses. And Market Vector officially accepted Bitcoin as a form of payment from a client to fund their investments. Market Vector willingly accepted Bitcoin as a form of payment to be used to buy their products. And it's great. That's just another move towards adoption of Bitcoin, whether it's being adopted in the sense of a corporate treasury or a medium of exchange. But in this case, it was used as a medium of exchange to purchase a good or service. And we definitely need to see more of that. We need to see more use of it in exchanges for goods and services, and not just hodling or holding, whatever you want to call it. So I think that's awesome. But now I'll touch on some bearish news. I don't even really know if it's bearish news. It's just contrarian, I would say. So Nick Carter, he's an extremely well-known Bitcoiner. He's extremely intelligent. If you listen to any of his podcast interviews, he's really a good source of information, and not just coming from like a Bitcoin maxi lens. He really is a well-rounded and balanced person when it comes to explaining different topics in Bitcoin. And obviously the biggest topic these days has been the Bitcoin strategic reserve in the United States. So he just released a long article, a very good article. I read it all, and I would encourage anyone who's listening to me right now not to just take my word on it and to actually read the whole article yourself to understand his points. Some of the key points he was making against the Bitcoin strategic reserve. I'll just list off a few of them. Again, you really got to look at the article yourself to get the full feel for it. But basically, he was just saying how he believes that it wouldn't be a good look on the United States to bring in Bitcoin as a strategic reserve, because it would somewhat undermine the US dollar and cause some questioning on the United States' belief in their own currency. And the United States needs to keep their position as the global reserve currency. So he believes that they can't risk anything to undermine that. Another point he made was that publicly announcing and following through with the US government acquiring Bitcoin in the sense that was laid out in Senator Loomis's strategic Bitcoin reserve bill would cause an insane pump on the Bitcoin price. It would rocket the price up so high, which would end up costing the taxpayers of the United States hundreds of billions of dollars, even trillions of dollars, to acquire the amount of Bitcoin that is proposed in the strategic reserve bill. So we got to keep in mind that as Bitcoiners, we live in a very small bubble, echo chamber probably, and we often forget that people around the world and in the United States who actually hold Bitcoin is a pretty small percentage. So for the United States to pump the bags of a small cohort of Bitcoin holders would not be a good look for any government, let alone the United States. And they're not dumb. They wouldn't want to risk upsetting the broad public by doing this and enriching a few Bitcoin holders and corporations who hold Bitcoin. And I think that's a very valid point. And on top of that, it would cause people's perception of Bitcoin to be quite a bit more negative than it may already be now. Nick Carter also mentioned that Bitcoin is just too small and volatile for the USA to consider doing such a thing, especially when they could do the same thing with gold, which has a lot more belief and a lot more holders than Bitcoin. And it would be received a lot better than going the Bitcoin route would be, which is, again, a fair point. Another point was that he believes it would be very unlikely that this would pass Congress anyways, because Trump himself can't make this happen, and it would have to get passed through Congress, which he believes is extremely unlikely. And even if it did go through, Trump isn't going to be in power forever, and the Loomis bill, I think, has a holding period of the Bitcoin for 20 years. So the odds of future governments to actually follow through and hold that Bitcoin for the 20 years, it's very unlikely. They would probably sell some of it or all of it, and that would cause major problems in the Bitcoin world. It would crash the price significantly if the United States announced that they're selling their Bitcoin reserves. There's another key point that he mentioned, that he believes there's other methods that would be preferable to a Bitcoin reserve to improve the debt to GDP. Something like reducing government spending or letting inflation run hot for a while to help improve that debt to GDP ratio. And I would agree with that. I think Bitcoin's natural and organic growth would be hindered if such a monumental change happen to Bitcoin that this would artificially pump up its market way too fast and way too aggressively, and that would not be sustainable. We have to keep sustainable growth in mind with Bitcoin. It can't happen too fast and it can't happen too slow, although happening slower is probably healthier than happening too fast, in my opinion. I think Nick makes a lot of good points, and he's obviously not being negative on Bitcoin. He just thinks that this strategic reserve is probably not the way to go, and he thinks it's unlikely to happen in the first place. And I would probably agree with that. I think we're just being too optimistic, and that the more likely scenario that Nick mentions, and I've heard others mention, is that the 200,000 Bitcoin or so that the United States currently holds from a seizure would likely just get rolled into some sort of a treasury asset or a reserve asset. But there wouldn't be any big move to start accumulating whatever it was, like 1 million Bitcoin per year or even 4 million a year, which RFK stated the United States should do. What do you guys think about Nick's article? Did you read it? Let me know in the comments, and also let me know what your thoughts are on the strategic Bitcoin reserve. I've been flip-flopping on it a little bit lately. Obviously, it would be amazing for my bags, but I think realistically it's probably not going to happen. At the most, we'll get the current holdings from the United States government that they have, the 200,000 Bitcoin. That'll probably just remain under their possession, and they're technically already holders. I don't know, we're just waiting on confirmation from them to basically state that they're holders, even though we already know they're holders. Either way, we should hopefully find out in the first 100 days of Trump being in office. And until then, if you like this content or you like the daily Bitcoin updates, let me know, and I'll keep doing them. But thanks for tuning in and have a good day. Peace.